Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm doing a very exciting video. I've been planning this since like September of 2020. It's been a long time in the making. So basically, this idea came from the reading vlog I did where I read books that had covers that looked like my favorite books. I was looking at my favorite books and trying to figure out like something similar to that vlog that I could do, and I realized that 3 of my favorite books of 2020 were all blurbed by Seanan McGuire. When I realized this, my brain exploded. If you don't know, hello, hi, I'm Riley, and I'm a #1 Seanan McGuire stan. She's my all-time favorite author. She's the author of the Wayward Children's series. She also has a pen name, Mira Grant, and another pen name, Deborah A. Baker. She's just like a writing queen, and I love everything that she's written. And all 3 of these books are blurbed by her. So I thought, there we go, that's my next video. I'm gonna read books that Seanan McGuire blurbed in the attempt to find my new favorite books. Well, let me tell you, in theory, that sounds so great. In actuality, very, very hard to find. There's no actual way to search for blurbs. There's no like blurb database. When I Google Seanan McGuire blurb, nothing comes up. So basically, the past 6 months, however long it's been, I've just been looking everywhere. Every chance I get, I'm looking for Seanan McGuire blurbs, and I have now found some. So first, I just kind of wanted to look at what she said about these 3 books. You guys should know now, these are 3 of my favorite books of 2020. So for The House in the Cerulean Sea, which is probably my all-time favorite book, she said, this book is very close to perfect, which I agree. I would call this a perfect book. Next, The Library of the Unwritten. She said, The Good Place meets Law and Order. This book is so much fun. Again, I agree, this was a super fun book, and I totally get the Good Place comparison. And then lastly, The Weight of the Stars by Kate Ingram. She said, this book is starlight on broken concrete. It's flowers on a broken rooftop, and it's a masterpiece. I agree, I think this book is a masterpiece. I think Kate Ingram is a masterpiece. So based on these 3 books and the fact that I loved them and that she blurbed all of them, it's safe to say that I can trust Seanan McGuire. I already knew that I could because she's my favorite author, but sometimes your favorite author, like, they just have different tastes than you when it comes to the media that they consume. But I think it's pretty clear that her and I have similar taste. So the first thing that I did when looking for blurbs was I looked through all of the books that I own, because I thought odds are I have something if I just randomly had 3 books already that she blurbed, and I'm sure I have more that I don't even know about that I've read. I wanted to look through everything that I own, which was extremely time consuming because if you can't see back there, all of those cases, I have a lot of books, but I found 2, which was crazy. So the first 2 that I found were The Heroine Complex by Sarah Kahn. So what she said about this, her blurb is on the back. She said, the superheroine we've been waiting for, the urban fantasy we deserve. Sarah Kahn is a total package, comedy, tragedy, and sincerity. Grab your cape, we're saving the city. So this is a superhero book. I've owned this for so long, and I don't even remember when I got this or why I got this. I don't really hear anybody talking about it. It's possible that I got it because I saw Seanan McGuire tweet about it. I don't know, because I don't remember getting this. There we go, that's one. And then the other one that I already owned is Borderline by Michelle Baker. This is another book I've owned for a long time, and Seanan McGuire said, smart, snappy, fast, fantastic. You will not be sorry you read this. So it's like an urban fantasy, fae type of story. Then came the hard part, the actual like hunting down blurbs. So the next thing that I did was I went book shopping. So this was back in October when I did my Come Book Shopping With Me video, and I mentioned that I was working on a project that involved me actually like pulling all of the books in the bookstore off the shelf and looking at them. Well, this is what I was doing. I was looking for Seanan McGuire blurbs. I spent like 3 hours in a bookstore, literally looking at everything, and I found one. I got so excited because I literally had been there for so long and was finding nothing, and I'm like, oh my god, this video is gonna be a bust. But I ended up finding Space Opera by Catherine M. Valente, Shannon's blurbs on the back, and she said, "This glorious glitterball dream of a book is Valente at her best. Beguiling, bewitching, and inexplicably demanding. Are you ready to rock?" So then what I decided to do was I figured I would look up Tor books because Shannon Maguire publishes with Tor, and I figured that it was a safe bet that she would probably blurbed a lot of Tor books because typically authors will blurb within their publishing house. And I found one. So the one that I found is The Empress of Salt and Fortune by Ningbo, and Shannon said, "An elegant gut punch, a puzzle box that unwinds itself in its own way in its own time. I didn't know I needed to read this until I did." So there is another one that I found. And then lastly, this is the one that came out of nowhere. I was scrolling through Goodreads one day, and at this point, I think this was in like December, I had been looking for Shannon Maguire blurbs for like 4 months at this point, and my brain was like attuned to finding the name Shannon Maguire anywhere. Like I was just looking for it everywhere, and I was scrolling through Goodreads and I was scrolling really fast, and I saw the name like on the cover of a book, really tiny. I don't know how I caught it, but I saw her name on Hench. So this is by Natalie Zena Walcott, and Shannon said, "Fast, furious, compelling, and angry as hell." This is another superhero book. So these are the 5 books that I'm gonna be reading. I'm so excited. I feel like I've been excited to read these for so long. And yeah, I'm just gonna take you on my journey of reading all of these books, finding out if any of these are favorites, if this is successful. I kind of like that 2 of them are ones that I've owned for many years and never really even considered reading. And then the other 3 are ones that I didn't even know were a thing or had no like real interest in. So yeah, hopefully this is a success. Okay, I kind of just want to jump in here before we start reading the books and talk about blurbs for a minute because I realized when I started this video, I kind of just started talking about blurbs like they're a common thing that everybody already knows about, and maybe that's not the case. So blurbs are essentially just the quotes that other authors put on either the front or the back of books to give their pitch, why they liked it, why you should read it. And there's a lot of different reasons why an author would blurb a book, whether they're friends and it's a favor, or they work for the same agent or the same publisher, you know, their agent or publisher asked them to do it. A lot of authors get sent manuscripts specifically for the purpose of blurbing them, so they will read them and then, you know, blurb whichever ones they liked. There is, however, some blurriness when it comes to blurbs. Blurbs. We're just gonna ignore my bad pun, pretend that didn't happen. You kind of have to take them with a grain of salt. There are some authors who don't read the books that they blurb, or have only read the first chapter or the first 50 pages and then they blurb it. Or, you know, they're just not accurate. Maybe they didn't actually like the book, but they still blurbed it. You really just have to use your own judgment, and I always use it with the thought of, you know, do I trust this author or not? And that's why I chose Shannon Maguire, because she's definitely an author that I like fully trust. But I did want to see if she has ever talked about why she blurbs books or what her blurbing process is. So I did like stalk her Twitter, and this is actually a topic that she has talked about a lot. And so I pulled a couple tweets. I think that these 2 quotes really sum up her process. So I just want to read them to you. She said, "To blurb a book, I must 1, agree to read the book, 2, actually read the book, 3, like the book, 4, not feel like my blurb would be counterproductive, and 5, find something to say." And then the second tweet she said, "I try to be pretty open about the things I do and don't like to avoid any confusion here. Things I do not do. I don't blurb books unread. I don't blurb books unfinished. I don't blurb books just because a friend of mine wrote them." So yeah, I was really excited to find those tweets and have like actual proof that I feel like I can trust her. But for the sake of this video, since Shannon said from her own words that these are all books that she read and liked, I'm gonna take all of her blurbs on these books as recommendations. Hi. Okay, so the first book that I'm going to be starting for this video is Borderline by Michelle Baker. So like I mentioned, I've owned this for a very long time, and I've never heard anyone talk about this book. I definitely think this was a book that like I bought just upon browsing, and I've never heard anyone talk about it, so I'm kind of going into it blind. But we have the Shannon Maguire recommendation, and that's the whole point of the video. So basically, this is an urban fantasy. We're following this woman who gets invited to join the Arcadia Project, which is this secret government organization that monitors Fae. So basically there are portals to and from the Fae realm, and there are Seelie and unseelie Fae living amongst us. The people of the Arcadia Project basically monitor them, make sure everything's going good, make sure there's no problems. And then when a nobleman from the Seelie court goes missing, the main character gets caught up in this whole mystery. And yeah, it sounds like it could be really good. I don't know, I feel like a lot of the time when I pick up these random books that I've never heard anyone talk about them before, they end up being like some of my favorite stuff. And I always get excited by that because as much as I love being in the book community, I find that it's really hard to just randomly discover books. For the most part, I feel like every single book I know of, whether I've read it or not, whether it's in my genre or not, I've seen it, I've heard of it, I've heard somebody talk about it, I know vaguely something about it. So unless something's like brand new, it's rare that I feel like I don't have some sort of idea of what a book is. But I have no idea what this is, and I'm really excited. All right, so I'm a little further into this, and nobody saw my bag of mini Oreos. More about the main character because she is super interesting. Basically, she has borderline personality disorder, and at the start of the book, she tried to commit suicide. So she jumped off a building and survived. She lost her leg during that, and now she has a prosthetic. I don't know if this is own voices for BPD. I'll have to look into that and I will report back, but it seems like the author knows a lot about BPD. Just from what I know about it, I do know people like very closely who have BPD, so it is something that I know a lot about. Obviously, I don't have like first-hand experience with it, but there's a lot of stuff so far. Like, it plays a really big part of the book because obviously that's the main character. But anyways, so she's staying, after her suicide attempt, she's in a mental facility because they're, you know, watching her to make sure she doesn't harm herself again. And she gets approached by this woman who says that she is coming from the Arcadia Project and this will be like a really great opportunity if she comes and joins, but she can't tell her what it is. There's a whole lot of secrecy around it. So she ends up going and they move her into this house with all of the other people who are part of the Arcadia Project. And she's realizing that all of the people involved in this are people with mental illnesses. So she's now living in this house with a bunch of people with mental illnesses. She's on a trial to join the Arcadia Project, and she finds out that there are portals and fae, and actually the fae who come into our world are celebrities. So there was a couple celebrities, I think that they actually name dropped. I can't remember who they were, but they said that they were fae. They were trying to explain it, why celebrities are so captivating and like attractive and everyone like is so obsessed with them, and it's because they're fae. They have like a glamour and can make themselves look the most appealing to people, and so they become celebrities. And I was like, oh my god, that is like so genius. Like, to connect fae glamour with celebrity appeal, amazing. So this really famous movie star goes missing, and it turns out that he is a nobleman from the Seelie court. And so to find him, she'll have to integrate herself into like Hollywood elite. So far, I'm really liking it. I really like the main character because she is super flawed. Pretty much so far, she says the wrong thing, does the wrong thing all the time. And I don't know, I like flawed characters. I could see a lot of people disliking her, but I would rather have a character who I get really frustrated with, but that I understand, rather than just some like bland cookie cutter character, you know? So I finished Borderline this morning. You guys, I loved this. I don't know why I decided to do lip liner. while I'm trying to talk. This was such a good book. I actually did look it up to see if it was own voices for borderline personality, and it is. So there you go. It was such a unique urban fantasy, and I loved the way that it like mixed Hollywood with the Fae, and the main character, so great. Like I said, I really like flawed main characters, and this character was like super flawed. Like, you're gonna get really annoyed with a lot of her decisions. Oh my god, can we talk about a dress I have for a wedding pre-COVID that I still haven't gotten to wear? It's been hanging here like taunting me. Anyways, one of the really cool aspects of this book is that there is something called an echo, and it's basically every fae has a human echo, and it's like their human soulmate, and they're like drawn together. Part of this book is that the main character is like trying to figure out who her echo is, and like echoes aren't always a romantic thing. Like they can be like platonic soulmates. I loved this. I've already ordered the other books in the series because I just thought it was super fun. The first Sean and Maguire recommendation was definitely successful. I think I'm gonna rate this 4.5 stars. It would be a full 5 stars, but I feel like I didn't really start loving it until at least like 50 pages in. It took me a minute to get used to the world, but once I did, I was really into it. So the next book I'm gonna start is Empress of Salt and Fortune by Ning Vo. This is a little fantasy novella, kind of inspired by Imperial China. So very excited to start it. It's super short, so it shouldn't take me very long. So I just finished Empress of Salt and Fortune. I don't really know how I'm feeling about it. I did not like this as much as I was hoping I would. I really love novellas, specifically Tor novellas, but I think I'm realizing that the ones that are like high fantasy don't work for me. And I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's because like it's just such a small number of pages to fit in the amount of world building that I want in high fantasy. I just always feel lost. And by the time I have figured out the world and what's going on, it's over. This wasn't bad. I just don't know. I don't know if high fantasy novellas are for me. I keep trying them, wanting to love them, and I just can never really get into them. So basically the plot of this is it takes place in two timelines, like a story within a story of this woman telling these other two people I don't even know if I can explain it because I was so confused. So she was telling these two people who I think are like gathering stories to write them down, like gathering history and writing them down. So she's telling the story of when she was the handmaiden to the Empress. So we're going back and forth between the two timelines of like present day when she's telling the story to the actual stories. I don't know. I wanted to like this. And it's like, there was like nuggets that I really liked. But like I said, I was just lost. And by the time I finally figured out what was going on, it was over. So I don't know what to rate this. I feel like 2 stars isn't fair because it's well written. I'm just dumb. I don't know. Like 2.5 stars? We're gonna go with that. So yeah, this one was a fail, unfortunately. So the next book I'm gonna read is Hench by Natalie Zeno Walcott. I think that out of all of them, this is the one that I'm the most excited by because like I said, I just found this one on a whim and I'd never heard of it before and it sounds so good. So basically it's a superhero book, but we're following a henchwoman. So in this world, everyone knows about superheroes and villains, and being a hench person is a job. Like it's an actual job that people apply to and it's like an actual salaried job. The main character is a hench person for this supervillain and she basically does like data analysis stuff for him. And one day on a job, she has an encounter with a superhero that ends up with her losing her job. So I believe that the whole book is kind of like her setting on this path of vengeance. She now like really wants revenge on the superhero who ruined her life and on heroes in general. And because of all of the data that she was collecting at her job, she now has proof that superheroes are more of a danger to society than the villains. So it's like an origin story of her becoming a villain, trying to take down the heroes. And if that just does not sound like my absolute perfect kind of book, I don't know what is. So I have high hopes for this. I'm really hoping it doesn't let me down. I'm hoping Seanan McGuire doesn't let me down. Okay, so I am a little over, oh my God. I didn't use a bookmark. Okay, I am a little over, I'm exactly 100 pages. I'm loving this. Basically, I did not know this going into it, but not only was she fired because of this encounter with a superhero, she was severely injured. So basically she was on a job and a superhero showed up and was super destructive and ended up throwing her across the room. And the superhero has super strength, so when he threw her and she like slammed into a wall, it shattered her leg. So she's now in the hospital and had to undergo tons of surgeries to fix her leg, and she is forever going to be disabled. She now has to walk with a cane and she has a limp. And the government came in when she was in the hospital to do like an incident report. They thought that it was one of the villains that injured her. And when she told them that it was the hero, they were like, oh, never mind, and didn't file a report because it was the hero that did it. And like the government is protecting the heroes and covering up all of the bad stuff that they do, like severely disabling a citizen. So at the part that I'm at right now, she's just now out of the hospital and she's going through like physical therapy and like trying to get her life back together because she's now disabled and she lost her job and she's just like really angry. And I feel it. I feel the anger. Like, I cannot remember the last time I read a book where I was this angry for a main character. I feel myself turning into a villain. Like, this is my villain origin story. I'm like, yeah, bitch, let's take him down. Like, I'm so angry for her because everything that happened is so fucked up and nobody cares because it was a hero that did it. Oh my God. This is how it would actually be if superheroes were real. It kind of reminds me of that show, The Boys. I only watched a couple episodes of it, but it's basically like if superheroes are real, but they're really shitty people, but nobody cares because they're heroes. That's like really what this is reminding me of. And the writing is really good too. Like, oh my God, I'm loving this. I finished Hench. I'm giving this 5 stars. Like, oh my God, this book was so good. It was everything I wanted from a villain origin story. And like, it was dark. There were some parts of this that I was like, that's fucked up. But it was so good. Like, I loved this main character and her journey and her descent into villainhood. I loved all of the side characters, and she kind of had this like crew of villains who were helping her take down the heroes, and I loved them. She also had the villain that she ended up working for after her accident is like the biggest, like worst villain that there is, and he's the arch nemesis of the hero that injured her. And they have this whole backstory that reminds me of Vicious because the villain and the hero were like best friends, and then something happened and now they're arch enemies. And so they had this whole like sub plot line that I was fascinated by. I definitely feel like if you like Vicious by V.E. Schwab, you will also like this, except I thought this was better. Like, there's some parts where Vicious was lacking and this was just amazing. And I wish so much that this would be a series. Somebody told me in my Instagram DMs that the author wants to write more books, but the publisher only bought one. The ultimate tragedy of life. So you guys, like, pick this book up, read it, so we can get a sequel, because the way that it ends, it has a conclusion and it wraps everything up, but it leaves a little bit left open. So there's definitely places that a sequel could go, and I would love to see it. I'm just so impressed by this book because I've honestly heard nothing about it. I've never heard anyone talk about it, and it was So good. It exceeded my expectations. It's definitely gonna be a favorite for the year. Like, amazing. This Seanan McGuire recommendation was an astounding success. Okay, so the next book we have is Space Opera by Catherine M. Valente. So this is a really interesting sounding book. Basically, it is about an intergalactic singing competition where every planet has to submit forth an artist to perform in a singing competition, and if you lose, your planet gets exterminated. So that sounds super bizarre. It could either be great or terrible. This was gonna be my clip telling you that I've started Space Opera and letting you guys know my first impressions, but I think I'm gonna DNF it. I've been sitting here outside for like an hour reading this. I am like 75 pages in, and I'm just not enjoying it. It feels like a chore. I don't know. There's something about the writing style that's really just like not clicking with me, and I feel like it would be a pain to keep getting through. I can definitely see why this book would appeal to a lot of people. It's super like bizarre and out there, and I mean like the plot and everything is interesting. I just can't get into the writing, and I feel like I'm going to hate it if I keep going. So we're just gonna DNF this. Call this one a fail, but it's fine because all the other ones have been good. So unfortunately, Space Opera, the recommendation was a fail. Okay, hi. I'm gonna lay like this. I finished Heroine Complex. Oh my God, all the words just left my brain. I loved this. You guys, I just got off a really long live show that I loved. It was so much fun. But it's every time I'm on a live show, it's just a constant reminder that I am such an introvert, because around like the 2 hour, 3 hour mark, I'm just so drained. Like I have lost the will to live. And as much as I love the people that I'm talking to on the live, I'm just like, am I human anymore? Am I human anymore? Like, I just have nothing. I have nothing. I'm so drained, so I can't even find the words to talk about this. I loved it, but I'm gonna talk to you guys about it tomorrow, because right now, I just need to sit in the dark and silence. I need, like, to just be in silence in the dark and not use my brain at all. Yeah, that's all I got. I have now rested, and I am much more equipped to talk about Heroine Complex by Sarah Khan. So this is another superhero book, but super different from Hench. I was a little bit worried that reading two superhero books in one video, they would kind of blend together, but like they could not be more different. So basically this takes place in San Francisco, and it follows the main character whose best friend is a famous superhero. She is the hero that protects San Francisco. Everyone like knows who she is and idolizes her, and she's her best friend and assistant. But what nobody knows is that she is hiding her own superpower. She has like a really powerful power that would make her the most powerful superhero if she were to use it. But she doesn't, because she's hiding it. After her best friend gets injured, they don't want the whole city and world to know that the superhero who protects the city is injured and unable to protect anyone. So she has the main character impersonate her and pretend to be her, go to all these like press events, because superheroes do press events, and pretend to be her. So that's basically what the whole book is her pretending to be the superhero. And I loved this. I just want to say, like, this had such a freaking good romance that I did not expect. Like, there was a romance plotline that was a main plotline, and I did not know at all going into this that there would be a romance, let alone such a prominent one that was so good. It was basically like rivals to lovers, and from their very first interaction, I was like, what is this? It was so good. Like, they had such good banter, and then like there were steamy scenes that were so good. I was not expecting it, and I was so excited. But I also really loved the main character and her dynamic with her best friend, because they kind of have a very interesting relationship, because her best friend has always been in the spotlight and been like the one that everybody notices, and now that she is impersonating her, she's kind of taken on that role, and so their dynamics change, and so there becomes a lot of conflict between the two of them. And I just thought that whole like dynamic was super interesting, and also just this whole world, like the villains that they were fighting were so cool. Literally the first scene opens up with them fighting cupcake monsters. Like, the first line says, "I am not a superhero. This was the only thought I could muster when a cupcake with fangs launched itself at my head." This was so good. The humor, the romance, the action, and I think I'm giving it 5 stars. Would we have guessed going into this that the 2 superhero books would be my 2 5 stars? No. And yeah, like I said, this had a super different vibe from Hench. Hench had like a darker, grittier kind of vibe. I said it really reminded me of The Boys. It also reminded me kind of like Jessica Jones. It just had a darker, grittier kind of vibe, whereas this was super light and fun and kind of campy. I could definitely see this being like a really fun animated superhero show. And since finishing this, I have gone on to order the rest of the books in this series. There's like 4 or 5, I think, already in the series, and like I'm so excited that it's a long series. And I believe that the next book follows the best friend superhero character. But yeah, this was the last book that I was reading for this experiment. I think overall it went really well. Here is a ranking of the books that I read and my enjoyment of them. In last place, obviously, we have Space Opera, which I didn't even finish. Then next, I think, would be Empress of Salt and Fortune. It really just missed the mark for me. And then following that, which is a big jump, we have Borderline, and I absolutely loved this. I thought it was great. And then it was really hard to decide between Heroine Complex and Hench, which one I liked more. But I think second place is going to be Heroine Complex, and then first place would be Hench. I just am a sucker for villains and villain origin stories, and if we're looking at books, one being about heroes and one being about villains, the one about villains just like inched its way a little bit closer to the first spot, just because that's what I prefer. But both of these books were 5 stars and amazing, and I highly recommend checking them out if you like superhero books. So I don't really know like what my conclusion is here, because I had 2 books that I really didn't like, and then I had 3 that I absolutely loved, and nothing in the middle. So maybe my conclusion is that I either love or hate the books Seanan McGuire recommends. I don't know. I think that overall this was successful, because I do have 3 books that I absolutely loved and I probably wouldn't have read outside of this video. I definitely wouldn't have read Hench. I also think it's interesting that the 2 books that I had previously owned are 2 of the 3 that I really loved. So that's interesting. Obviously, there was some reason why I had purchased these in the first place and then held on to them for 3-4 years, and they ended up being amazing. So that is going to be the end of this video. I hope you guys liked it. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!